This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and I know some of you have really been waiting for this one for a while. This is the Sony VAIO Tab 11. This is a full Windows tablet with a detachable keyboard, and we're going to look at it now. There's no denying that Microsoft Surface Pro 2 needed some good competition, and who else but Sony, because they designed some really gorgeous things with compelling displays, so we had high hopes for the Sony VAIO Tab 11, and that's what you're looking at here, 11.6-inch Full HD Sony Triluminous display with their quantum dot technology inside. Indeed, it is a lovely display, and it comes with a keyboard in a box. You don't have to pay separate for it. It's there. It's a wireless keyboard, not Bluetooth, and it acts as a cover. Now look at the finish here. This reminds us a lot of the Sony VAIO Flip series. It looks like a brushed metal black kind of finish. This is available in your choice of black or white, by the way. PC and keyboard will both be matching colors. Full keyboard here, trackpad, a little weird. It's kind of got a stipply kind of surface, and you can see it's working. It's moving me back and forth here. Trackpad, not my favorite feature. It's tolerable. On-off switch up here, and you can go on, off, and you can just turn on the keyboard without turning on the trackpad, almost as if Sony knew you weren't going to love that trackpad too much. Full-size keyboard, relatively speaking, but crammed down into 11.6 inches. I think Sony did a very good job. They've certainly been making small PCs forever, and they know how to make a pretty good keyboard layout. It is, however, very thin. It's also very light, which is nice for carrying. It does have some flex. So if you put it down on a kind of uneven surface, you'll feel it kind of boinging around a little bit funky. Still, that said, it's not a bad keyboard to type on at all, as long as your idea of a horror isn't typing out a proposal on a netbook size keyboard. Does the job. This is not backlit, by the way. So how does this thing charge? Well, you see these little contacts right here? Really small, aren't they? These mate with little contacts right on our Sony VAIO Tab 11, right over here. So the only way to charge the keyboard is to do this, which will also put it to sleep. Now it's held with a magnet at the bottom, but the thing is it can twist off pretty easily. See, so if you put this in your bag, even though it might look something like a Sony VAIO Pro 11, really nice like a laptop, that's not on there real sturdy, unlike the Surface Pro keyboards and Surface Pro 2, which they latch on so strongly via magnets at the bottom that you can carry the thing around by the keyboard. Here's what it looks like. Obviously, it does look like a classy little laptop, doesn't it? The tablet itself, not the tablet plus keyboard, 0.39 inches, so it is very thin. At 1.7 pounds, it's also, relatively speaking, very light for a full Windows machine. And the good news is this isn't even an Intel Atom Bay Trail, though. Those have been reasonably improved performers, certainly over previous generation Atoms. This is available with Intel Core CPUs or with a Haswell generation Pentium. And let's talk about that first, because Best Buy, who has the exclusive on this right now for in-store bricks and mortar sales, stocks the Pentium model, $799, so it's very attractive, right? You get the keyboard for that price. It seems a lot cheaper than Surface Pro 2. Well, that is really not a great CPU. It feels kind of like Bay Trail, which is to say, if you're buying a $500 device, you're like, okay, I know I'm not going to get the fastest performance, but this is, well, an $800 device, and the Pentium 1.2 gigahertz dual core, no hyper-threading, no turbo boost, is not the fastest knife in the drawer, but we'll cover that some more later. Let's take a look around the unit some more. Kickstand on the back here. And this might look like a flimsy thing, and I was a little worried when I first saw it. In fact, it latches on pretty tight. You can see how much I'm working. Well, it's very sturdy. This is really, you see, it doesn't even change the angle when I do that. So I'm not worried about this breaking off. You'd have to be wickedly abusive to try to break this off. The other nice thing is it opens to variable angles all the way to 85 degrees back. So take that Surface Pro 2. You have more freedom. If we put it down, you can have it at any angle that you want. We can prop it up here. You can prop it up here. So what's the bad news there? Obviously, if you're using this on your lap, this is going to fall between your legs. It becomes useless. So for lap work, not so good, especially because this keyboard does not physically attach when you're using it in keyboard mode. It latches on only in the closed position, as we saw, kind of tenuously, but that's it. So Sony expects you to be using it kind of like this. So the nice part is you can put this keyboard anywhere you want. You don't have to have it right here, but it doesn't create that nice kind of triangle effect where you would actually have it increase stability and make it act like a laptop on your lap. The back section is matte plastic. Honestly, the price range for this it goes up. If you're not looking at the base Pentium model, you're looking at prices that are the same as Surface Pro 2, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more classy materials here from Sony, especially because they are the masters of aluminum and carbon fiber and all sorts of nice stuff. And the back of this doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look super duper classy. On the side here, we have some ports. You know, Sony loves the little doors to cover the ports. They think ports look kind of messy. So it tells you what's under here. We have the symbols for the USB, the HDMI, and we'll pop that open. And I'll tell you, make sure you pop it from the right place. There's a little grab handle under here, because I grabbed it from over here, and this whole cover plate, actually, that with the labels on it, came right off. That's what I'm talking about when I'm a little bit disappointed about the quality of the product from Sony. One USB 3.0 port right here, micro HDMI. As ever with Sony's little covers, they're a little bit fiddly to get on, but you'll get the hang of it. Up top here we have another little door, and under this door is our micro SD card slot, and if it had 3G, 4G, which it does not, we would have a slot for the SIM card as well. This is a computer with a fan, so we have ventilation up here, we have ventilation on the back. Does not get too hot, even playing some Metro live tile games, that kind of thing, it gets warm, but it doesn't get burning hot. Back here we have 8 megapixel camera with Sony's Exmor RS sensor. It's a good camera, better than you usually find on a tablet. This side right here we have our volume controls. And we have the power button, the same little rounded kind of Xperia button that we've seen on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z and on recent Sony Xperia phones. Headphone jack right over here. Charging port, it uses Sony's new barrel pin style charging connector. A little hard to get it in and out. That plugs in right here. It has a compact charger that it comes with. Another nice thing about this, it comes with the pen in the box. Unlike the Sony VAIO Flip, where some models you actually have to pay $40 extra for the pen, you do get the pen in the box. It's an N-Trig pen. Those of you who watch our other tablet reviews know what that means. It's a very good pen, very precise. In Adobe Photoshop and those applications that depend on WinTab drivers, you will not get pressure support. Now, Adobe's supposed to be working on doing a universal Windows Ink API pressure sensitivity add-on for their latest generation of Adobe CS6 and Creative Cloud software, but it's still not out yet. So where do you put the pen? It's too thin for a silo, honestly. Well, Sony has this funny little clip-on. They had a clip-on for the VAIO Duo 13 too, and I didn't mind it too much, but this thing is kind of annoying because it clips on the back on the left-hand side, which I'm left-handed, so I think that part's actually awesome. And it goes, there's a little pokey thing right here, it goes in the hole, and it perfectly blocks your USB and HDMI. Really? Really? I don't know. You could try to open those doors first, I suppose, and leave them partially exposed, but the pen clips on. It's a pretty tight fit. I don't think this pen is going to come off, so there it is. It actually does get the job done. If you want to remove this again, it's not easy. You kind of have to yank and work it out, and I'm not sure how many times it's going to survive that, but there it is. Other than the general nice styling of the unit, the thing I love most about this is the 1920 by 1080 full IPS display. Touch and obviously N-Trig digitizer here, so you can use the digital pen on this as well. We're operating this. Windows 8 is pre-installed on this. I'm surprised because we just got a hold of this review unit. You think by now they'd have 8.1 on it. That said, Windows 8.1 is a free download from the store. In fact, it's suggesting that we download it right here. Make sure you download all of Sony's updates first using VAIO Update and do a BIOS update before you do install that. We have a physical clicky home button here. Very hard to press. A little bit overkill there, but you certainly won't be pressing it accidentally. Has the usual ambient light sensor, accelerometer, and under Windows 8, Sony controls the ambient brightness in their own control panel rather than using the Windows control panel. We measured display brightness at 287 nits of brightness. That's not bad. It's not super duper wow. Some tablets actually go as high as 300 to 400 nits of brightness, but I find it adequate for most settings, and honestly, if you're going to use this outdoors, glare is going to be so distracting that, well, yeah, you're probably going to give up. For those of you who are wondering, when you put the keyboard in place via the magnet like so, it does put the unit to sleep. Also, for those of you who are familiar with Sony products, you know some of them have had sleep drain in the past, and Sony worked hard with this to make sure that you can leave this for days without having any power drain, and in fact, we have not had any problem with power drain. By the way, one neat trick, I don't think Sony intended this. This is a metal bodied pen. And because there's a magnet over here to hold this thing shut, you can actually put the pen there. So if you want to put it and not have it rattle around while it's sitting on your desk, that's kind of a neat trick. Now, in terms of what you get inside, if you get the Pentium model, which is what we have here, it's the Pentium 3560Y. That's an 11.5 watt, 1.2 gigahertz dual-core CPU. Again, no hyper-threading, no turbo boost. You'll feel a little lag and everything. Again, it feels a little bit like using a Bay Trail, and some of the benchmark numbers are close to Bay Trail. Our benchmark numbers for PC Mark 7, 3058. You usually see around 4900 for a Core i5, so you get the idea. Now, PC Mark loves an SSD, and this has a 128 gig SATA interface SSD, so that's a fast interface, faster than you're going to get with the Bay Trail, so that really helps it with that score. 3D Mark 11, it's scored on the performance test 246. Instead of the 7 to 950 we would see set on Core i5. W prime, a computed pi in 62.76 seconds. That's where you're noticing how the CPU is a little bit lacking here, because that just measures your computational performance, and that's about twice as long as it would take a Core i5. It's actually slower than the Bay Trail computing pi. For Geekbench 3, 1334 single core and multi-core 2394. So now that I've scared you away from the Pentium model that is tempting because it's $7.99, if you're just going to use Office, browse the web, do social networking, a little light photo editing, it's fine. You're going to notice some lag when you're doing various things on this. Every now and then it's just going to take a minute before it does something, and you'll tap the screen and think it missed your tap, but it really didn't. It's thinking about it. It's not the end of the world. But for those of you who say, aha, I want more, there is a Core i5 available, and that is $1,100. That competes directly with Surface Pro 2, which also has a Core i5, except this is using the Intel Y series Haswell CPU. That's a lower power and slower version of the Intel Core series. It's commonly used for things like tablets because, in theory, it should save a little heat and a little power. Now, if you want to go up to that Core i5 Y series, that is the 4210Y, 1.5 gigahertz, Intel HD 4200 graphics instead of Intel HD 4400 graphics, which is faster, that you would find on the full Core i5. That's your $1,100 model. Still gets you the 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM, just like even our Pentium model has. That's soldered on board, you can't upgrade it, and 128 gigs SATA SSD drive. There is also a Core i3 in between for $9.99, but honestly it's really worth $100 more to go with the Core i5 for the performance boost that you're going to get. Now here we have Adobe Photoshop open up so you can see the pen in action and so you can see the speed. So this is a JPEG image taken with a Sony digital SLR, so it's a 6 meg image file, and we're going to try some things on this and see how it goes. We're going to apply a filter first. We're just going to do a sharpen. Then we're going to do an unsharp mask. And that was pretty quick. And now we'll rotate the image. Poor cat's upside down now. So the performance here actually isn't too bad. Now with the pen, if we choose the pen tool, you're not going to get pressure sensitivity until Adobe actually adds Windows Ink API drivers that are compatible with N-Trig. So we can draw, but no matter how heavy or light I draw, you're going to get the same weight of line in here. So that's what the pressure sensitivity is about. Sorry, Kitty, for doing that. I should have drawn some big whiskers on you instead. As you can see, the pen behavior is pretty fluid. The CPU may be slow, but it's sufficient, obviously, for this kind of work. Now, for those of you who do want to draw and do want pressure sensitivity, because you get more natural drawing experience and natural lines, Art Rage is included. Sony loves to bundle Art Rage. And now we have Art Rage launched, and we have a brush tool, and I'm going to draw. And you can see how it gets fatter as I move in. I'm pressing harder. So there you have pressure sensitivity, and the speed is pretty good. And if we do the concentric circle thing, it's keeping up quite nicely. Also, another thing is N-Trig is very accurate right out to the edges of the screen, which is something that Wacom is not always. So it works pretty well. There it is, Art Rage, and your pen. Also, OneNote for inking. Even with the Pentium model, you got enough horsepower to do that. It's going to be fine. So for those of you who like to do long-form handwritten notes and maybe convert them to text later, this will work great. Obviously, this is full Windows 8 64-bit, so you can install any Windows programs you want. Like you saw, we had Photoshop on there. That was CS6. You can put iTunes on there. We've got the the desktop version of Internet Explorer running. You can put Chrome on here, you name it. Touch control is very good in IE, so I actually tend to use it with Windows 8 based products. And you can play video in here. Now let's hear how the speakers sound on this. And we're going to look at our Dell Venue Pro 8 Pro review. Obviously Adobe Flash Player again, because this is Windows. And our fan just kicked on. Well, let's go all the way up to 1080p on this.
This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at
Not
something
bad.
that you guys have been begging and screaming for, a review of the Dell Venue 8 Pro. This is a Windows 8 PC with an 8-inch display, only $299.
78% for volume.
So this is the Dell Venue 8 Pro.
So that's good, because sometimes Sony speakers are a little bit anemic, and in this little guy, they actually managed to have some pretty good sound. Colors also look very nice on this, and let's take a look at our color reports to see how this did. Then we use our Spider monitor calibrator with this to test color, as always. And there you can see we have 75% of Adobe RGB. We have 95% of sRGB, so every bit as good as the Sony VAIO Pro, the Sony VAIO Duo 13, the Samsung ATIVbook 9 Plus, all the top displays. So that's something that it actually does better on than Surface. Surface, you get more like 53% of Adobe RGB. So for those of you who are imaging professionals and you really care about color accuracy and you're going to be using the built-in panel, particularly while working on images and editing them, big plus for the Sony VAIO Tap 11. This is a glossy panel, so glare is an issue, but nothing that is unbearable really as glossy displays go. And you can see the viewing angle isn't too bad. Sony's triluminous displays have gorgeous colors and nice high contrast, 660 to 1 by the way, but sometimes they don't have the best viewing angles. This is one of the better among Sony displays. And this is an IPS technology, so it has a lot to do with the color filters that they're using and that kind of thing. You can make it kind of disappear if you go pretty far to the side, but honestly, you're probably not going to be using your tablet at truly bizarre angles. So the Pentium and the Y series should give us a little bit better battery life, but just as we saw with Ivy Bridge with the Y series CPU, like the Lenovo Yoga 11S, battery life really isn't helped that much by the Y series CPU. It does reduce heat, which is a nice thing, especially for such a slim form factor. But Sony claims up to 6 hours of use, and in practice we've been getting about 5. That's with balanced power management setting and brightness set to 50%. Obviously, if you drop brightness even further down, you could go longer. If you set for an energy saver, serious energy saver power management setting, you could get a little bit more battery life out of it, but expect around 5 hours from this. Other features include a IR remote. Really, it works best if you have a Bravia TV that's 2012 or newer. Otherwise, you have to fiddle through and try a bunch of remote codes to try to control your AV gear. It's not as slick as it is on the Sony Xperia Tablet Z Android tablet, unfortunately. Inside, we have dual-band Intel Wi-Fi N-7260, so you get 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands for Wi-Fi. That comes with Bluetooth 4.0, and we also have NFC, and there's a front 2-megapixel webcam with Sony's Exmor R sensor. Not a bad webcam at all, and again, the back camera is really very good. So all in all, it's a nice tablet, but if you're looking at the Core i5 models, you're not looking to go with that Pentium just for the extreme value, what you get for the money. Surface Pro 2 really just still pulls ahead in so many ways. I think that Sony did some interesting things here, but the things that really start to bug me, like the way the keyboard attaches it. The fact that you have to actually connect the keyboard to charge it. You can't use the keyboard while it's charging. The fact that the keyboard doesn't stay on very well. Not too thrilled with that. The Y series CPU is something of an underperformer compared to the usual Core i5 ULV U series CPU. So for those of you who need serious computing performance, that's something to keep in mind. Lastly, the kickstand on the back. It's great that it's variable position. It's also great that it's much more durable than you might think, but it's not very good for using on your lap. So that's the Sony VAIO Tap 11. Comes with a digital pen, thin, relatively light for a Windows tablet, full Windows 64-bit in here. But as I mentioned, there's some caveats, and I think that Surface Pro 2 is really going to win the race against the Sony. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.